Okay, I am trying my hand at my first red salsa with some of my own homegrown vegetables. This is a first for me. The tomatoes, obviously not these two, these are grocery store Romas, but the tomatillos, which are these little green guys right here. The jalapenos are red. I grew, as well as a few other little tomatoes. I'm going to roast these. I found a really good recipe that I like. I can post that as well in the video. But the first part of this is that once everything has been cut up, stemmed, seeded, then it needs to roast actually until it blisters. And after that, it'll all go into a food processor or a blender. And actually, the original recipe calls for a molcajete, which is the traditional method of grinding with a mortar. It's kind of a mortar and pestle type thing. But anyway, I'm going to use a food processor and not do it old school. But anyway, I'm excited to see how this turns out, and I will post the next steps once we get there. All right, so it looks like we're starting to get some good char on all of these things. I've got it on a very low broil, actually, just because that's the easiest for me right now. And once it's started on one side, then you turn it over so that the other side can get some nice char and blister to it. It's amazing how quickly it happens on broil. You just have to keep a close eye on it. Make sure nothing gets burned up because it's been on broil maybe 5 minutes at the most. And I'm doing other things, but also just, opening the door to the oven, checking it. And also got a little bit of olive oil here so that I can make sure that they don't stick, because that's a bummer when half of something sticks to whatever you're baking it on. I already turned those over, then I need to leave them alone. Anyway, I think it's time for part 2 of the broil, and we'll catch the next step after that. All right, side 2 is complete. I'm feeling pretty good about the char on that side as well. So if I remember correctly, the next step is to put all this stuff together in a food processor. So I'll get that going. Okay, got the food processor out. I'm beginning to put the tomatoes in that are whole, with the exception of the stem and the tough part at the top. I'm putting in these jalapenos. There's one serrano pepper. The original recipe called for 2 cloves of garlic. I really like garlic, so I had some small heads of garlic, and the cloves are small, so I bumped that up to 5. And it called for half of an onion cut into chunks, so that's in there as well, and 4 tomatillos, which are slowly making their way in there as well. I may run out of room here and have to do some processing before I can get everything in there, because the recipe also calls for a half of a bunch of cilantro, but I personally think that's a lot for this small amount of salsa, so I've cut it down to somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3. And it also calls for the juice of 1 lemon. I'm cheating, and I'm using lime juice. And I'm just gonna kind of approximate what I think I could get out of 1 lime. So that may be too much, who knows, we'll see. 1 teaspoon of salt, put that in there. Hope that's not too much. You know, the tomatoes, they just say 2 large tomatoes. They don't necessarily tell you what kind or what those should weigh. It's just approximate. So anyway, I need to try to pulse this and hope that it doesn't squish out. Kind of have an old school processor here. The dog is already hiding. He's terrified of the food processor, as well as other appliances, but well, there he is. But he'll run off soon. Here we go. That's looking much better. It's very chunky. I prefer mine not quite that chunky, but it created some room for me to be able to put the rest of the onion in there. And I think I'm gonna have to sort of cut this bit. I don't really want all those stems in there either. I'll keep some of them out, but put some of the cilantro in there bit by bit. I'm hopeful it'll taste good. I personally like my salsa just not sweet, but not completely salty and bland. So I might put just a smidge of a sweetener in there to give it a little bit of tang. So here we go. Probably could have told you on the front end to mute because this thing is so darn loud. Sorry about that. I'm gonna put in one last little bit here of cilantro and get that. And then we're gonna have a taste. Do a little taste test. And it's, you know, the thing that's so cool about this is just knowing that I grew some of the ingredients. It's really, really pretty cool. Ooh, that's good. Wow. You know, there's just something different about homegrown vegetables that weren't sort of mass produced for sale at the grocery store. It's a different taste. And I bet after this has a chance to sort of sit overnight in the fridge and those flavors kind of congeal, I bet you it's going to be even better. So highly recommend. This is taken from a website called, I think it's called Mi Familia, and the recipes looked authentic, and that's why I chose it. And I will try to get that in this video, the link to that for you. Thanks for watching.